Some people believe the universe naturally balances its own scales, that karmic justice is an invisible force gently correcting the wrongs of the world. I believe the universe is chronically understaffed, and occasionally it needs a freelancer. I never set out to entirely dismantle a family's livelihood, bankrupt their enterprise, and force them to flee the county. I just wanted to do the marketing job I was hired for. But when you build your castle on a foundation of rot, arrogance, and flagrant federal safety violations, you don't get to act surprised when someone finally kicks the pillar. It started with the scent of oxidized iron, stale peppermint, and desperation. The company was Titan Tread and Iron, a fitness equipment liquidation warehouse founded by a former Olympic heavyweight lifter named Evander. Evander had a gold medal from the late 90s, shoulders like a mountain range, and tragically, a rapidly deteriorating grip on reality. Severe mental health struggles had relegated him to a silent, pacing ghost in the back offices. To fill the vacuum, his wife Blythe had seized the reins. Blythe possessed exactly 0 years of business management experience, but what she lacked in logistical acumen, she made up for in suffocating, toxic positivity. The first red flag wasn't just a flag, it was a blaring klaxon. During my final interview, Blythe leaned across a faux mahogany desk littered with crystal healing stones and offered me a conspiratorial whisper. She wanted to restructure my hiring contract to bypass the recruiter who had connected us. "Why let some agency take a cut of your hard work, Corin?" she purred, tapping a manicured fingernail against the wood. "We can just do a side agreement. I'll pay you a little less than the agency rate, but you'll take home more than if they skimmed their percentage. We're a family here, we take care of our own." I was financially exhausted, staring down the barrel of rent and desperate enough to rationalize it. I agreed. I convinced myself it was just shrewd business. I was wrong. Entering the Titan Tread ecosystem was like stepping into a bizarre, cultish fever dream where the boundary between professional and personal simply did not exist. Blythe didn't just welcome me, she love-bombed me. Morning meetings didn't begin with agendas. They began with Blythe physically cornering employees for uncomfortably tight hugs, planting moist, peppermint-scented kisses on our cheeks as if we were her actual children stumbling downstairs in our pajamas. It was deeply unsettling, but the rest of the staff, mostly Blythe's actual children and a few browbeaten warehouse workers, accepted it with hollow, glassy-eyed submission. I decided to keep my head down and do the work. And there was a mountain of it. Titan Tread's digital infrastructure was practically prehistoric. They were tracking inventory on smudged legal pads and running credit cards through a dial-up terminal that shrieked like a dying modem. In my first 3 weeks, I dragged them kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I deployed Salesforce to track their wholesale clients. I set up Slack channels so people could stop screaming across the warehouse to locate a pallet of kettlebells. I implemented Zendesk to manage customer complaints, which were numerous, and integrated a modern point-of-sale system so a customer tapping their card would instantly update the accounting ledger. I streamlined their entire operational flow, saving them dozens of hours a week. But I was hired for marketing, and that's where the delusions truly manifested. Every marketing meeting was commandeered by Tamsin, Blythe's 20-something daughter who held the fabricated title of Director of Operations. Tamsin's approach to business strategy was to scroll through TikTok, find a viral trend involving lip-syncing teenagers, and demand we replicate it using refurbished elliptical machines. "We just need, like, exponential virality," Tamsin would say, gesturing vaguely with her iced matcha latte. "Corin, I need you to make this squat rack a meme." "I can absolutely run a targeted social campaign," I would reply, opening my meticulously researched proposal. "But I need a budget for ad spend, and I need someone to actually film the equipment while I optimize the backend." "Oh, we don't have a budget," Blythe would chime in, smiling beatifically. "And Tamsin is far too busy with operations to film. Just use your magic, Corin, organic growth." I was entirely on my own, tasked with conjuring revenue from thin air, while the family actively hindered any structured progress. But while I was wandering the massive, drafty warehouse trying to find aesthetically pleasing angles of rusted dumbbells, I started noticing the hazards. At first, it was the landlord's special fixes. A massive leak in the corrugated metal roof was patched with what looked like industrial duct tape and expanding foam. But then I looked closer. Snaking directly across the primary customer walking path was a rat's nest of exposed copper wiring, barely concealed beneath a frayed, duct-taped rug. A puddle from the roof leak was inching dangerously close to it. Then came the ADA violations, wheelchair ramps blocked by towering stacks of unanchored weight plates, bathrooms repurposed as broom closets. But the crown jewel of their negligence was the forklift. One afternoon, I stood frozen in the aisles as I watched a 19-year-old warehouse kid named Kip operating a massive diesel-powered forklift. He had no certification. He wasn't wearing a hard hat, steel-toed boots, or a high-visibility vest. Worse, standing precariously on the bare steel forks, 25 feet in the air, was another employee, desperately reaching to unscrew a dead halogen bulb from the ceiling. The forklift wobbled. Kip was laughing, grinding the unlubricated gears. If the kid on the fork slipped, he would be dead before he hit the cracked concrete. I pulled out my phone. I didn't say a word. I just zoomed in, focused the lens, and let the shutter click silently. I spent the next week documenting everything: the blocked fire exits, the structural cracks in the load-bearing pillars, the lack of eye-wash stations near the battery charging bays. I didn't plan on using the photos. It was just a localized insurance policy, a digitized safety net in a building that felt ready to collapse. My foresight paid off exactly 34 days into my employment. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The air in Blythe's cramped, windowless office was thick with the scent of vaporized lavender oil. Blythe and Tamsin sat across from me, their faces completely devoid of the maternal warmth they usually weaponized. "Corin, we are extremely disappointed," Blythe began, her voice tight, adopting the tone of a deeply wounded parent. "We brought you into our family, we gave you a home here, and quite frankly, the sales numbers are stagnant." "It's been a month," I said, keeping my voice perfectly level. "And in that month, I've automated your accounting, built a CRM from scratch, and fixed your customer service pipeline. As for marketing, I have posted every day, but without an ad budget or internal participation, organic reach takes time." Tamsin scoffed, rolling her eyes so hard I thought she might sprain something. "We don't need excuses, Corin, we need results. We expected to double our showroom traffic by now. You promised us growth. I promised you a strategic marketing plan which you refused to fund," I corrected gently. Blythe held up a hand, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. "Clearly, this isn't a culture fit. We need someone who is willing to hustle, someone who doesn't constantly demand money to make money. We're letting you go." They wanted the moon delivered on a silver platter in 3 weeks, funded by $0 and built by a ghost. They wanted a scapegoat for their own catastrophic mismanagement. I looked at Blythe, then at Tamsin. I didn't argue, I didn't raise my voice. I simply nodded, stood up, and handed over my keycard. "Understood," I said. "Good luck with the warehouse." I walked to my car, the gravel crunching under my shoes. I didn't feel angry. I felt a cold, crystalline clarity. I sat in the driver's seat, pulled out my laptop, and connected to my mobile hotspot. I navigated to the official portal for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I didn't just file a complaint, I authored a masterpiece. I uploaded 72 high-resolution photographs meticulously categorized by violation type. I provided dates, times, and names. I highlighted the exposed wiring near the water leaks. I detailed the completely undocumented, uncertified forklift joyrides, attaching a crystal-clear video of the employee balancing on the steel prongs 25 feet in the air. I cited the specific federal codes they were violating. It wasn't a grievance. It was a lethal, bureaucratic precision strike. An OSHA investigator called me 2 days later. He sounded exhausted at first, probably used to disgruntled employees making petty claims about breakroom hygiene. But as I walked him through the digital dossier I had provided, his tone shifted from bored to sharply attentive. "You're saying they regularly elevate unharnessed personnel on bare forklift tines over concrete?" he asked, the scratch of his pen audible over the phone. "Yes, sir, usually on Tuesdays when they change the high bay lights. The operator's name is Kip. He's 19 and uncertified." "I see this investigation will take time, Corin. Bureaucracy moves slowly. But with this level of evidence, we'll be paying them a surprise visit very soon." I thanked him, hung up, and went on with my life. I found a much better job within 2 weeks, working for a company that actually understood what a marketing budget was. But I never forgot about Titan Tread. I knew the penalties for willful, repeated OSHA violations. They weren't slaps on the wrist. They were financially crippling, existential threats to small businesses, easily climbing into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. While the gears of federal bureaucracy slowly ground forward, I made one more call. I reached out to a close friend, a fiercely aggressive real estate agent who specialized in distressed properties. Keep an eye on the public records for a residential property owned by Blythe and Evander, I told her. In a few months, they are going to be hit with a federal fine so massive it will liquefy their assets. When the panic sets in, drop some literature on their doorstep. Be the friendly vulture that offers to buy their house fast for cash. Months passed, I checked the public OSHA enforcement database sporadically. And then one rainy Thursday, there it was. A cascade of citations issued to Titan Tread and Iron, willful violations, serious violations. The proposed penalties were astronomical, a six-figure death blow to a company already bleeding money due to sheer incompetence. A few weeks after the citations went public, I decided to take a detour on my drive home. I turned down the familiar industrial parkway and pulled up to the massive warehouse. The transformation was absolute. The sprawling parking lot, once packed with oversized pickup trucks, was entirely empty. Weeds had violently breached the cracks in the asphalt, stretching toward the gray sky. The giant vinyl banner that used to proudly display the company logo was torn in half, flapping sadly in the wind. Plywood was bolted over the front glass doors. Slapped right in the center of the wood was a massive neon-orange for-lease sign. I pulled out my phone and typed in their URL. Error 404, page not found. I texted my realtor friend. Did you ever drop off that literature? Her reply came a minute later. I tried, but I was too late. They sold the house in a massive rush, way under market value, to an out-of-state cash buyer. I heard they packed up a U-Haul in the middle of the night and left the state entirely. I sat in my car, staring at the dilapidated husk of a business that had thought it was invincible. They had tried to screw over their recruiter. They had exploited their workers. They had endangered the lives of teenagers just to save a few bucks on proper equipment. And when I tried to bring order to their chaos, they threw me out like trash. I put the car in drive and pulled away, leaving Titan Tread and Iron in the rearview mirror forever. Goodbye, Blythe. Wherever you and your scatterbrained family fled to, I hope the universe treats you with exactly the same amount of grace you showed others. We're even. If you ever find yourself in a toxic workplace, remember this. You don't need to scream, you don't need to argue, and you certainly don't need to get even on their level. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is simply stepping aside, holding up a mirror to the authorities, and letting a broken system collapse under its own weight. Document everything, know your worth, and never let a fake family culture blind you to reality. If you enjoyed this story of cold, bureaucratic karma, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell me in the comments down below. What's the craziest red flag you've ever ignored at a new job? I'll see you in the next one.